Good afternoon. I'm Glenna Wright Gallo. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, or OSERS, here at the U.S. Department of Ed. And I am going to be moderating the panel this afternoon. This is an area that speaks to me as an educator and as a special educator. And so our panel, our session is on high quality and affordable pathways for educators into the field. And we have a great panel of speakers who are going to be with us today. The majority of them are in person, and we also have one that is virtual. So we're going to start off by hearing from Ryan Saunders, who's the Deputy Director of State Policy at the Learning Policy Institute. We have Dr. Michael Rice, who is attending with us virtually. He's the Michigan State Superintendent of Public Instruction. We also have Amanda DeBell, the Deputy Cabinet Secretary of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation at the New Mexico Public Education Department, as well as Aaron Crisp, who's the Executive Director for Tennessee Grow Your Own Center. We also have at the end of the session, we'll hear reflections by Missy Testerman, the 2024 National Teacher of the Year. And during our time together, we'll be joined by the secretary. And so we're gonna ask you to kind of be flexible with us as we adapt to his arrival and all of the schedule changes that sometimes go with that. So with that, I'm gonna start by turning it over to Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I want to thank the Department of Education, Mo and her team for allowing us to join this conversation and for giving me the prime after lunch spot a second time. But before I get going, I do want to take a minute to remind ourselves about why this conversation about high quality and affordable pathways is so important. And I'm going to draw these words out a little bit until the slides join me. But regardless, I'll just go ahead and get started. Oh, I'm in control. My apologies. I'm the problem. It's me. Okay, so without further ado, I want to first ground us in some of the research so that we understand why this conversation is so important. And we've already heard it come up multiple times throughout the other panels about why high quality preparation, accessible high quality preparation is so important. So first of all, we know that teacher certification, teacher experience, and stability matter for student achievement. And we've seen that borne out in large scale studies in New York, North Carolina, and most recently California. We also know that teachers without full preparation are 2 to 3 times more likely to leave the profession than their fully prepared counterparts. And I will get into a little more detail about what I mean about fully prepared in just a moment. But we also know that creates the leaky bucket phenomenon that Cassandra highlighted and leads to shortages and undermines any of our efforts for school improvement or to come out of the pandemic and bring students back to where we want them to be. And finally, this is a core equity issue because these characteristics of teaching are inequitably distributed. The Civil Rights Data Collection has borne this out over and over again. And that unfortunately is a pattern that we've seen over decades in the research. So that's just to ground us there a little bit. Now, the quality of preparation also matters. And we know that the type of preparation an individual receives has chances to help them be more effective and stay in the classroom longer. So this is also generally measured by classroom observation and student learning, as well as how long they stay in teaching. So what does quality preparation look like? Giving teacher candidates in-depth training in their content area, along with building their knowledge of teaching and learning, and giving them the opportunity to practice teaching alongside an experienced mentor before they are on their own in the classroom. So that's the core vision of the ideal as research has demonstrated. I'm sharing findings here from Richard Ingersoll and his team at the University of Pennsylvania, which analyzed national data from the U.S. Department of Education. Now, set aside whether you call these pathways alternative or traditional. The study looked at what preparation experiences candidates received and how those were associated with their retention in the classroom. As you can see here, candidates who had little to no teaching practice and little to no pedagogical preparation, and I'm talking coursework, feedback on their teaching, Those individuals were by far the most likely to leave. They're at the bottom bar of this chart. The basic pedagogy group, which is defined as having a full semester of practice teaching and other kinds of pedagogical prep, but that doesn't necessarily mean a methods course. They left at half the rate of those with little to no pedagogy. And those who had methods on top of the rest of the package were even more likely to stay. So again, there is a suite of supports we know individuals need to stay in the profession and become good teachers. Now, the diversity of the teacher workforce also matters, and this is a topic we've already had come up, so I'm not going to belabor this or delve here, but I also just want to flag this is really important when we think about racial diversity, but also a wider range of diversity, including individuals with disabilities. But despite the evidence that we have for the challenges with shortages and the importance of teacher diversity, we still have a lot of progress to make, as we've already heard over and over again today. So, should have hit that before I said that last part. Now, last year, my colleagues at LPI did a 50-state scan plus DC to see where the most recent state-level data indicates about shortages. That study found that at least 314,000 positions were unfilled or filled with teachers not fully certified. That's likely an undercount because, as we heard earlier, state data systems mean you're not getting a complete picture in some states about what those numbers are. That's at least 1 in 10 teaching positions nationally, which a conservative estimate that impacts about 6 million children. So there are a number of drivers of teacher shortages, including, as we've heard already, a shrinking pipeline, or as we've also heard already, a key driver is teacher attrition or teachers leaving the profession, often well before they hit retirement age. As we saw earlier, many other studies confirm attrition is strongly related to the preparation that teachers receive. But unfortunately, far too many candidates cannot afford the kind of high quality preparation that enables them to come into the profession with the greatest likelihood of success. Many are coming in on emergency style permits or no credential at all and are not yet fully certified. And I appreciate the shout out from Massachusetts about their emergency certified research, which has demonstrated again that the substance of the preparation for that emergency certified credential had implications for their effectiveness and retention. Now, another piece of research, and there's a nice QR code if you want to jump in and not listen to me. My colleagues recently completed an analysis of student debt, which you see pictured here. Their study analyzed new loan variables included in the U.S. Department of Education's National Teacher and Principal Survey of 2020-2021. The study provides a national look, but they also included state-specific information on student loans, second jobs outside the classroom, and several other variables on an interactive map. You are welcome to go in and download your state or your state of interest, and I encourage you to check it out, play around with it a little bit. Now, they found, and I apologize, whenever I turn, apparently there's like this extra echo, so it's a habit. They found that just over 60% of all full-time public school teachers, about 2.1 million, have taken out student loans to pay for their education. 1.3 million are repaying their student loans, about 1 in 4 teachers, and 400,000 still owe their entire balance. The average monthly payment is about $342 a month. Now, as you can see here, the ongoing debt burden falls hardest on Black teachers, as well as Latino and Native American teachers, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander teachers, and multiracial teachers. More than 30% of Black teachers still owe all of their debt, student loans, and almost 60% owe at least some of their loans. Cost aside, access to high quality, highly rated preparation remains unequal across states. And that's just kind of a fact of life, as we've heard about the effort to address pathways. This slide points to what those disparities look like at one state. This is data from California, where my colleagues analyzed survey results from over 60,000 individuals who have earned a credential in California over the past 5 years. The study found the candidates who came through student teaching, especially residency pathways, which, to give you some background context, California has invested over $600 million over the past 5 years in teacher residency pathways. Those individuals who came to those pathways, sorry, got a little loud, were more likely to rate their program as highly effective and feel well prepared to enter teaching. That's another side piece about retention. If you feel like you're good and ready to do something, you're more likely to be good and ready to do it. So again, can't discount that piece. It also found that Black and Native teacher candidates were the least likely to have had these kinds of high quality preparation experiences. Only 46% of Black and 50% of Native American completers reported participating in student teaching or residencies in these California surveys, compared to at least 2/3 of other racial ethnic groups. Preparation costs, including whether you can earn a salary, pay the bills while doing a residency or student teaching, and learning alongside an expert mentor teacher, is a key driver of why candidates might choose to enter teaching through what are called alternative CERT programs or emergency style permits. Got ahead of myself. Nationally, more than twice as many teachers of color are certified via an alternative pathway as white teachers. So, apologies, that slide doesn't look that great. A key policy question for state and system leaders to think about is how to broaden access to high quality and affordable preparation. Research points to the key drivers of shortages, but there's also a growing evidence base about policy strategies to address them. This includes what we call high retention pathways into teaching through partnerships and pathways such as teacher residencies, grow your own models, or the newer strategy, apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships. And I'll come back to each of these in a minute, but I just want to note that there are similarities and overlaps between these different approaches. States can also cover most or all of the cost of preparation in exchange for a commitment to teach in a high-need field or school, including rural schools. And we've heard examples of that so far already. By investing in service scholarships and loan forgiveness, states can defray the cost of becoming a teacher and help ensure individuals are starting off on a foot where they want to stay in the profession. Again, the notion if you will teach, we will pay for your education can be both a powerful recruitment tool and a powerful retention tool. Shout out to North Carolina for their longstanding program, the North Carolina Teaching Fellows, and shout out to Oregon, who has a service scholarship program that directly targets racially and ethnically diverse candidates as they move through teaching. All of these strategies broaden access to preparation and reduce barriers to entry, especially financial ones, as opposed to lowering standards for teachers, which can too often seem like an easy fix to solve teacher shortages, and has kind of been the MO of policymakers the past few decades, if you think about the trends we've seen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about residencies. Teacher residencies, modeled after medical residencies, they provide candidates with the opportunity to teach, co-teach along an expert mentor for a full residency year. A lot of different ways states have approached this in policy. I encourage you to look at, we have a report we recently put out about state and federal support in policy for teacher residencies. It'll give you a little more of that nuance. But ultimately, these types of partnerships between LEAs, K-12 districts, and teacher preparation programs tightly integrate coursework into the experiences of clinical practice and ensure that the cost of becoming a teacher is not a barrier by either providing lower cost or free preparation for candidates. And they often come with a stipend and a service commitment to work in the sponsoring district. Another key piece here, and this comes from, I was chatting with Corey from Mississippi, they are also getting preparation experiences in the districts and schools that are most likely to hire them and most likely that need them. And so they are better prepared to enter and thrive in those environments. A growing body of research on teacher residencies finds that residencies prepare effective teachers who are more likely to be retained in high-need districts, and they also increase the diversity of the educated workforce. These are just some of the types of residency policy we've seen in states, and I just want to suggest it's also investment as well. And so I'm not going to shout out every state, but there's Mississippi, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, California, Washington, Montana, Delaware, didn't want to forget Delaware, and Mississippi. Yeah, thank you. Now, grow your own programs. Other states are pursuing grow your own strategies, or sometimes grow your own strategies in tandem with residencies and apprenticeships, the whole suite. It's great. With an eye towards recruiting and preparing individuals from the community to come teach in the community and who are more likely to stay, as well as who bring greater diversity to the educator workforce. Grow your own is a general umbrella term, and shout out to New America for trying to help us sort out those different terms and how they're used. But again, often how you will see this, sometimes it's the high school pathways or 2+2 programs where you have individuals getting their associates and then moving towards getting their bachelor's and their teaching credential between articulation agreements between 2- and 4-year institutions. And these types of programs can provide a pathway, as we have already heard, for paraprofessionals, classified staff, early childhood educators, and that's also helping meet those shortages in the short term as well. So there's a lot of kind of virtuous cycle work here. And finally, registered apprenticeships, not last but not least. Some states have recently turned to the apprenticeship model and they've integrated them into their grow your own vision as well. Shout out to Tennessee for all of their work, which you'll hear more about in a moment. I won't even get ahead of that. But 35 other states, likely even more, because sorry, this talking point might be a few months old, I apologize, have followed suit designing programs that provide a paid pathway into teaching with on-the-job training from an expert mentor teacher, as well as related coursework from a EPP partner that leads to a teaching credential. So if that all sounds familiar, it's because registered apprenticeships can look very similar to teacher residencies. And with apprenticeships into teaching rapidly expanding across the country, the Pathways Alliance, of which LPI and a number of amazing organizations in this room, too many for me to actually say out loud right now, are a part, took up the question of how we can support quality teacher apprenticeships moving forward. So last year, in partnership with the Departments of Education and Labor, Pathways Alliance published national guidelines standards, which help set benchmarks for quality teacher apprenticeships. The NGS were developed by a working group comprised of these organizations. That includes LEAs, EPPs, teacher unions, workforce boards, and approved by the U.S. Department of Labor. They're just guidelines, they're just a template, but they do allow individuals who engage with that template to have a better chance of meeting the Department of Labor's guidelines for an approved registered apprenticeship. So I'm going to try to wrap this up here. You all have been a wonderful audience, so thank you very much. The federal funding sources, there are many to support high quality, high access teacher preparation. ESSA funds, Title I, which LEAs in Tennessee have used to support their apprenticeship programs and which can be used to support school improvement. Can also help stabilize workforce, help ensure two individuals co-teaching models, a lot of uses for those funds. Of course, Title II funds, shout out to Pennsylvania who funded their residency program through Title II Part A funds. But there's also other ESSA programs like Title III for bilingual certification programs and Title V-B for rural residencies. Education, innovation, and research grants are supporting residencies in Arizona and New Mexico. And then seed grants have supported residencies as well. IDEA funds, including Personal Prep Part D, can be used to support the preparation of special education teachers through these types of programs. And as we know, special education teacher shortages are vast and widespread across the country. HEA funds, Perkins for high school pathway programs, as well as programs for career technical education. Not going to read the rest of them, but I just want to give a shout out to all these amazing funding sources and the work of the federal government to increase them. Now, the last thing, this has already been hit, so I don't even have to say this slide, but I will say it. The emphasis on data cannot be stated enough. It is incredibly important that we are able to have apples to apples comparisons across these different pathways. If you've done any work at the state level, you're in a state, you know these pathways have proliferated. And so we are under a lot of pressure to better understand just how they are functioning. And shout out to Carla, because I know a lot of the work that she was doing in West Virginia. And but yeah, I think it's important to remember that the data system we're trying to get allow us to better understand the impacts of where we are, because there's a lot of policy and a lot of change happening, and we don't always know, or we're not able to see the impacts of that until well behind where we'd like to know. So that's just, again, a shout out for data on evaluation for research and data transparency so individuals across the state can better understand. My colleague Tara Kinney's information is right here. She is on sabbatical. So if you would like to reach her, you can also reach me. But I will stop now. I thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Rice.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm trying to screen share here. So if someone can help me on the other side, it's not letting me screen share at this point. I could do it a cappella, but it would be markedly less compelling. It says I can't start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Can we pull that other off?
Dr. Rice, we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. I could lead the US Ed convening in some old school rap, but I'm not so sure that's on point for today.
You should be able to screen share now if you can give that a try.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to roll with that. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you, albeit virtually, for this important convening on the teacher pipeline. I want to thank U.S. Secretary Cardona. I want to thank his staff at the U.S. Department of Education for their terrific work on the teacher pipeline. I also want to give a shout out to the Michigan Department of Education staff, small in number, mighty in battle. You do a great job. And to Michigan educators across 100,000 square miles, you're rebuilding the profession one student at a time, one support staff member at a time, one teacher at a time. So educators, here's my overview. It's a state context. You have to understand the waterfront to understand our Grow Your Own programs. And then finally, lessons learned. So in terms of our state context, from 1995 to 2015, Michigan was dead last in the nation in total revenue growth, inflation adjusted. And it's important to understand that because you have not simply a teacher shortage in Michigan, but you have a substantially exacerbated teacher shortage in Michigan. In 2011, 2012, Michigan State Legislature cut $470 per kid in per pupil foundation allowance, required a healthy health care contribution, created a new, less generous retirement system for new teachers. The result, layoffs, cuts in support staff, cuts in teachers, cuts in administrative staff, program cuts, labor settlements diminished, and the educator pipeline began to decline immediately thereafter. Michigan's top 10 strategic education plan has 8 goals. 2 of those are resource upstream goals, the addressing of the teacher shortage and adequate and equitable school funding. We're going to focus on that first of the 2 resource upstream goals. When I began in this position, we had precisely nothing in the State School Aid Act to address the teacher shortage, notwithstanding the fact that the teacher shortage was rife in the state of Michigan. I would go from office to office in the state legislature, and as many legislators would tell me that there wasn't a teacher shortage as would tell me that there was a teacher shortage. We got our first dollars in fiscal year 21 to address the teacher shortage, small dollars in 21 and 22. In the middle of 22, at the beginning of the fiscal year 23 year, we got $575 million, range of ideas created by the Michigan Department of Education, recommended to the state legislature and to Governor Whitmer, another $448 million last year, $140 million this year, $1 billion plus over 3 years. And what does that funding go for? Well, $575 million goes for, among other things, scholarships, our Grow Your Own programs, which we're going to delve into in greater detail in a moment, for support staff to teachers and to a lesser degree students to teachers, and then $50 million for student teacher stipends, because we're no longer in a buyer's market, educators, we're in a seller's market, and in the seller's market, we have to incentivize in a different way. We have to pay people for their student teaching. $448 million last year that includes, but isn't limited to, teacher loan repayment, some equal per pupil payments to help increase educator compensation, a rural credentialing hub educators, because Michigan, though known for a number of its urban jurisdictions, Detroit, Saginaw, Flint, Lansing, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, also has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rural school districts, $50 million for mentoring and induction, and additional dollars for scholarships or fellowships and student teacher stipends. And here are the dollars this year in the state budget. It's not all about money, but that it isn't all about money doesn't mean that it isn't at all about money. It most assuredly is in part about funding. And here are some additional programs that the state legislature has supported, or that the department has supported to address the teacher pipeline. When we talk about the teacher pipeline, we're talking about quantity, quality, and diversity. And a number of people have raised the issue of diversity. I'm so appreciative that this U.S. Department of Education feels so strongly about diversity, and that so many of my colleague state chiefs feel strongly about diversity. We're educating a diverse student body, and we have a responsibility to present and prepare diverse individuals to teach our young people. So what happened to the teacher pipeline in Michigan? Well, in 2011, 2012, that year to which I referred earlier, we had 23,000 people preparing for the teaching profession in Michigan. And in the 5 years that followed, after the profound cut in nominal per pupil foundation allowance, the requirement for a big health insurance co-payment, the creation of a new retirement system, less generous, we had a plummeting of the people preparing for the profession from 23,000 to 9,500, an enormous decrease. But in the ensuing several years, we've grown each and every year in the number of people preparing for the pipeline. We've built that number back up to more than 16,000 people. We're interested not simply in quantity, but we're also interested in quality, as are you, educators across the country. We've transformed our teacher preparation. Our clinically centered preparation is the norm at this point, no longer the exception. We're centering on the whole child. We have multiple pathways that meet the same quality standards, and we're committed to working deeply with not only the ed prep providers, but our local school districts, in developing programs that work locally and regionally for our educators. And finally, 100% of our educator prep institutions are nationally accredited, and it took us years to get there. We were committed to it, and we've arrived in that regard. With respect to diversity, we have multiple educator prep providers in the state that feel strongly that we need to do better with respect to the recruitment and retention of historically underrepresented populations, not only into our ed prep institutions, but also through those ed prep institutions, through their programs, into the profession and being retained in the profession. Teachers of color have increased almost 2,300 from 6,600 to 8,884 over the last 8 years. That's a 34% increase. An addition of 1,653 Black teachers, 260 Hispanic teachers, 192 Asian teachers. These are big numbers in the state, and a 34% increase is certainly something that is noteworthy and tremendously appreciated. Props to all the ed prep providers, all the local educators that are making that happen. But the reality is that when you increase the number of teachers of color in the state of Michigan, as we have over the last 8 years, by 34%, by 2,700 individuals, you still have only increased by 2.7 percentage points as a share of the overall teacher pie. So approximately 1% of that teacher pie is 1,000 teachers. So it takes us a lot to bend the percentages of teachers of color in the state of Michigan. We're on our way. We've got a lot of work to continue to do. So state and local efforts to grow our own. So we look at this in two ways, and these have been mentioned. Ryan mentioned these, and others will mention these as well. But it's support staff and educators, and it's students and educators. And by students and educators, we mean not simply high school students, but middle school students as well. Our Grow Your Own work is a no-cost pathway to reduce barriers and increase opportunities for support staff to obtain certification. I know this from personal experience as a local superintendent, where we had a bus driver who was outstanding in his work. He was a teacher every day on his bus. But he said, you know, Dr. Ice, when I got the opportunity to be the top person in education, to be a teacher in education, I was delighted to take that opportunity and to prepare to be a teacher and to have my classroom not be a school bus, but to be a classroom each and every day, to be a classroom within a school district every day. We began our Grow Your Own programs in the state of Michigan with less than $1 million each year across 3 fiscal years. And we did it with Title II funds. We cobbled these together, small grants, a lot of professional development to help local educators begin to encourage young people and support staff members to become teachers. And now, of course, we have $175 million to raise up these programs. That $175 million has permitted 230 awards across 162 districts, reaching over 1,300 teachers and staff, support staff who want to become teachers, teachers who want endorsements in hard to fill endorsement areas. We have 28 of our teacher prep programs that are involved in partnering with districts to offer coursework. And this work has been awarded across the state, from the Upper Peninsula to the Indiana border, from one Great Lake to the other. Our Grow Your Own programs for students to become teachers are outstanding as well. I mentioned that they're not simply high school, but they're middle school. Also, they're extracurricular and curricular. There are a variety of models. We have shared both curriculum and professional learning, and we have these terrific kids who have presented to our state boards that I've visited in their local school districts. Kids from Holland High School in Holland, Michigan, kids from Eastern High School in the Lansing School District, children from Macomb Intermediate School District. They are the teachers of tomorrow. They are the young people who are going to take over the profession, take it over from us, and build it to a better and stronger place. Our Grow Your Own student to teacher programs are called Explore programs. They've reached more than 1,000 children. This is our long game. I understand this is not going to change the profession immediately, but it will change the profession over a period of time. And as you recruit broadly from the student body, rather than narrowly from the student body, your diversity in the profession grows and it begins to mimic your student body more broadly. I would like to give a special word of appreciation for our Grow Your Own Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Program. This is a CTE program, a partnership between MDE and MILEAP, 2 state agencies. This CTE program aligns with the U.S.DOL registered teacher apprenticeship and permits students to get credentials other than teacher credentials, child development associate credentials, Michigan Youth Development Associate credentials, and registered behavior technician credentials as well. The fact of the matter is that there are a whole lot of ways to pour into children. Amen, educators. And we want to give children the widest range of possibilities to pour into the lives of younger children as a potential career or set of careers. I would be remiss if I did not mention Talented Together, a registered teacher apprenticeship partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor, 56 intermediate school districts, hundreds of LEAs, and many ed prep providers are involved in this consortium. It's an important support staff to teacher route. These are teacher candidates who are support staff members who have worked with students before their teacher prep program and who will continue to do so during their program. Talent Together was funded initially with $76.4 million in total from the state legislature. It, like all the other programs that I've mentioned, has an emphasis on meeting the local needs of districts. It requires the very same elements as any other route to certification in the state of Michigan: completion of an educator preparation program, attainment of at least a bachelor's degree, and passage of the MTTC. So what lessons have we learned, educators, in our Grow Your Own work? Well, we've learned at least 5. 1, high quality preparation is foundational. Districts build capacity through partnerships. Funding and statutory language matter. The SEA design must empower local parameters. It can't be one size fits all, and access and affordability must inform design. When we talk about high quality preparation programs are foundational, we're leaning into the clinical experience. It can't be sit and get in institutions of higher education. There is a value to some of the theoretical work. There's a value to some of the book work, but there's a value, an enormous value, to getting eye level with children, learning children developmentally, learning children linguistically, learning how to pour into them and how to support them and how to educate them, and getting a sense of whether this is in fact the career for you, or if you are more suited, better suited for another career. These partnerships that we've established across the state are tight partnerships with ed prep institutions, with LEAs, with ISDs, and in some cases with community partners as well, building what is necessary in each local community across the state. We have 835 LEAs, we have 56 ISDs, we have more than 30 ed prep institutions. It's a complicated ecosystem in the state of Michigan, and it requires us to reflect upon the needs of different areas in different ways. Funding and statutory matter, language matters. I could do an entire presentation on this. Fortunately for you, I won't. But I would like to underscore just the very, very last bullet. Language that is as simple as including but not limited to. Make sure that you don't inadvertently wall off important aspects of supporting Grow Your Own. So for example, childcare, for example, transportation, for example, books and fees and technology. These may not seem like big deals to people growing up in the middle class, people with a lot of means, but they can be the difference between people continuing in a program and people having to stop a program. The SEA must empower local parameters. I've talked a little bit about that. I can talk a little bit more in Q&A if necessary. And finally, access and affordability are intertwined. I mentioned earlier that while it's not all about money, that doesn't mean that it isn't at all about money. If you don't have money, that's an enormous barrier. And so many of our young people who are capable of college success, capable of becoming teachers and being successful as teachers, could easily be stopped before they get started simply because they don't have the wherewithal to make it through a program. It's in our best interest to make these, to diminish these barriers, not only reduce them, but to eliminate these barriers so that the full breadth of our young people can consider teaching as a career. I will say this, I began in this profession 40 years ago. Teaching was an honored profession at the time, and it remains an honored profession by many, many, many of us. But we have a lot to do to resurrect the profession and to rejuvenate the profession, to make it the profession that it was 40 years ago, in full support for our young people. It's an honor to be with you, educators. Thank you.
Thank you to both of our panel presenters. We have a few minutes available to take questions from the audience for either of our presenters. And we have people back with microphones. Do you have a question or just, okay, no. Anyone have a question? Raise your hand if you have a question. Thank you.
Hi, this is Melissa Tooley with New America's Education Policy Program. I'm interested in, I know that the Michigan pathways that you've been talking about have not been in place very long, but do you have a sense of who is entering and completing these different programs in terms of like their retention in the field? Because we often, as I think Ryan mentioned, we see that oftentimes the pathways into teaching might recruit, for example, more diverse candidates, but not actually retain more diverse candidates in the long run. So I wondered if you had any data at this point to share with us around that, or if it's too soon to say, or what kind of anecdotally you can share with us about that.
Sure. So we are recruiting markedly more diversely into these programs. Our Grow Your Own programs funded through the department are far more diverse than the teaching profession as a whole. You saw a figure for economically disadvantaged students. In excess of 50% of the young people who are in the Grow Your Own programs are economically disadvantaged. The percentage of students of color we can get you, but it is in excess of 1/3. So those are very encouraging. Talent Together, likewise, has numbers which are far more diverse than either the student body, number one, as a whole in the state, or than the teaching profession as a whole in the state. So, but you're right. The programs are young, without a doubt. They are young and they are fledgling, particularly our student teacher programs. They are young. They've not produced teachers yet. Couldn't possibly have produced teachers yet, given when we began them. But the other programs are a little bit more mature. The support staff to teacher programs, and we can get you data on those.
Thank you. So my name is Mecca Smith, and I work here at the Department of Ed. I am actually monitoring the online chat. So I'm going to provide you, Dr. Rice, with 2 questions from folks who are online, and I'll give them back to back if you don't mind. They're pretty short. The first one is from Dipti Kumar from the Clark County Education Association. They say they're curious to learn how you have approached marketing the teacher pipeline program within the school. So just what does the marketing plan look like to ensure that folks are becoming aware of this? And then Dr. Carol Kierstead from the Center for Resources for Educator Workforce asks, given all the great work in Michigan, how are you thinking about the strategic focus in terms of the future and sustainability? So if you could speak to marketing and then sustainability.
Sure. Well, the marketing is being done in part by educators who are involved in Grow Your Own, and in part by students who are involved in Grow Your Own. We've had conferences where we've put kids into space with kids, educators who are running the Grow Your Own student to teacher programs in space with people who have an interest in starting those programs. $175 million, come to find out, gets a lot of attention from people and is itself a helpful marketing tool. $1/6 billion draws a lot of attention. When we were dealing with $1 million a year or less than $1 million a year with Title II funding, it was a little bit harder to get that attention. But $175 million attracts an awful lot of attention. We've got pools of dollars And we are drumbeating madly around not simply the dollars, but the program formation. We are putting people in front of our state board. We are doing press releases. We are doing Proud Michigan Educator videos. We are using every opportunity that we can think of to lift up the profession and to raise it up with this new cohort of young people, this cohort of support staff into teachers, this cohort of students into teachers. To the question around thinking about strategic focus in the future and sustainability, I will tell you that some of these dollars have to be re-upped by the state legislature every year. And so we are in competition budgetarily every year for the dollars. But in other cases, the state legislature has given us a pool of funding. So for example, I mentioned the fellowships or the scholarships at $305 million. That fellowship funding is not single year funding. That's multiple year funding. That's a big deal. Okay. The mentoring and induction funding, that's multiple year funding. That's a big deal. Now, it's true that the student teacher stipends is every year, but we've gotten it 3 years running. So the point I'd like to share in that regard is, would we like to have a defined set aside pool over a period of years? Yes. But when you get something in a budget 3 years running, it begins to become part of your system. It becomes to be woven into the fabric of what you do in the state to support teachers.
Thank you. And then
And a
as
shout
far as
out
the
to just a shout out to Intermediate School District Superintendent Dave Manson, who's here and is appreciative of the lifting up of Michigan. Go ahead, Dave. No relation to Charlie, just to be clear.
Thanks for all you do, Dr. Rice. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. And then we'll just end on this last question. Mecca, the second part was around kind of future facing or future proofing of the profession. And Dr. Rice, was there anything you want to add on that piece before I turn it over to Ryan to close us out?
So I will say that I think these programs are going to take on a little bit of a life of their own in the coming years, that we're going to have a veritable wave of support staff members, former support staff members who are teachers. And they are going to be able to make the case in a far more compelling way than any half-dead white state superintendent can. They're going to be able to say, look, I was a bus driver, I was a food service employee, I was a paraprofessional, I was an instructional aide, and now I'm a teacher. I am what you aspire to be, and you can go in much the same way through the exact same path and become a teacher just like I can. I see you in me, and I know you're capable. And that has an enormous potential impact on the profession, and by extension, an enormous potential impact on the young people whom we educate every single day.
Sorry. Well, a lot of great things have already been said, and I don't want to keep you any further, but I will just flag that I think there's a lot of great work around how to build funding mechanisms, sustainable funding models for programs that are trying to address these. And a shout out to Karen DeMoss from Prepared to Teach's work, and also to states like Delaware that have centered that in some of their residency work, Texas as well. And I think, again, Superintendent Rice raised a lot of different ways when it comes to even if you're just getting those first few years of using Title II funding, you're building momentum, you're building a case for those larger investments. And so I think it's been said a few times, like taking steps to get you moving in the right direction. And then I'll also just shout out states like Minnesota and Washington State, where there's a lot of attention on the pathways addressing shortages, but it's also a lot of attention on how to build a preparation system that is creating teachers that we need in the future, that are helping reshape schools, because we know we're trying to move beyond this factory model. And that's something you can't forget about when we're kind of putting out the fires of shortages. There's a lot of work to re-envision schools and how preparation that's thinking about clinical practice and deep, rich experiences in schools can really drive that change as well.
Please join me in thanking our two panelists. Thank you. So next, we're going to welcome Amanda DeBell. She's a Deputy Cabinet Secretary of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation with the New Mexico Public Education Department.
Thank you for having us today. And really, this work is the work that Prepared to Teach has supported New Mexico with over the last several years now. So just really want to shout out to them first. And do I drive first or do you get it?
Pennsylvania, Montana. The thing that these three things have in common, in addition to the fact that Democrats are outspending Republicans there, is that these are your top three must-keep states for Democrats who are battling it out in Sherrod Brown and Patrick case in Trump.
There we go. Okay, great. Yeah. So very similar to what we have seen already today, I think, is just really thinking about how we as a state, and really there is a dynamic team at the state that is been putting a lot of work and thought into this work, and has been bringing folks from around the state together along with our educator prep programs in order to think through the problem that has been our teacher shortage. But specifically in New Mexico, it is about teachers who are able to reach and teach our tribal nations and pueblos, as well as teachers that can and do teach in a bilingual classroom. So just like everyone else, we want to be able to retain and recruit them all. So we have several different on-ramps for our work. And one, of course, we've heard, just like following the model of many other states, is through high school. So through Educators Rising, also near peer tutoring has been a part of our CTE funding for the last 3 years. And so students are able to move into teaching as a profession through high school. We also have college. No problem there. So figuring out a way, and actually Ms. Dumas just gave me a great statistic that I did not have before this morning. And that is one of our universities in the state has increased the number of students moving into the College of Education by 1,500 since 2019. And so what they are doing is they are going out and they are recruiting from other colleges there in order to bring them into the profession. And I think that is really because of the work of raising the profession, everything that we have talked about today, as well as now we can pay them for their apprenticeship. So just thinking about that, then we have our graduate degrees supporting our graduate degree speakers, with tuition support, and then they can move into the programming. And then we also have, for our career changers, we have a program that will allow both two things. So we call our paraprofessionals and our state educational assistants. So educational assistants might be in a classroom at a school, and then they may decide that they want to go on to the teaching profession, or you might be in a different profession with or without a bachelor's degree, and we can support that work through the community colleges and our universities and educator prep programs around the state too. So really the work actually began in 2018 with thinking about how and what we could do in order to make an impact on the teaching profession. We knew then by 2019 that we could very clearly see that there were financial burdens. Folks could not give up their day job in order to do the work of student teaching, or maybe even to go back to school. So creating partnerships where this was allowable and making sure that we really truly understood what was happening. At this time also, we began to understand, like we've also heard today, that we needed to create. And so we have actually worked really closely with Colorado, especially in the last year or so, thinking about multiple ways to get to the teaching certification. So we now have a licensure or a portfolio process that folks can use in order to get there. So in 2022, working with our legislature, we were able to fund a $35,000 residency salary for our folks going through residency. That really opened the door, and this is where we're starting to see the most momentum here. In 2023, we have really begun to say, great, we need to make sure that we have a common course numbering system so that as candidates are moving from school to school, perhaps because their life changes, or if you are in high school and you are taking a class in high school that is a dual credit course, that you have the ability to transfer to any of our colleges, and those courses will transfer seamlessly. And then just last year, we were awarded the federal EIR grant. And so now we will be able to bring all of our programs together, and each of these components will monitor how well the program is functioning, how effective we are, and what our next steps can be. So we know that this work would not be possible with our state agency alone. So we are super indebted to Prepared to Teach. Those folks have been able to help us bring the right people to the table, get the right answers, and then start moving into action. So ideas, thoughts, and then action. We've heard lots of different terms for this today, but our work is around communities of practice. So the communities of practice can be around grade level areas. It can be around geographical areas. Lots of different options are available for our teachers in classrooms in order to fully participate and continue to learn as our residencies are, or residents rather, are actually doing the work. It is allowed for the LEA to participate with districts. One district in particular had a great need. It is our largest district in the state, had a great need around special education, not a surprise to anyone. But what we were able to do through that partnership is work with the Community College of New Mexico and support the work with the Albuquerque Public Schools in building a great pipeline for special education teachers and that work. So we had created a guide for the pre-service and co-teaching work. So making sure that every resident has a highly qualified mentor teacher that they are co-teaching with for the year, and then supporting them through that work. And on this slide, you can download the work that our staff has put together here, and we will get this later today. So thinking about what teacher residency looks like for us, these are our assets that we would like to share with you. First of all, they are earning a $35,000 salary. For New Mexico, this is a very doable wage. We know that most student teachers would go into debt during that last semester, depending on their particular program. They would go into debt during that last semester more so than any other semester of their schooling. We also know that it is very important for us to have wraparound services and coursework happening simultaneously with the partnering college and university and or site coordinator who is working with the schools, working with the residents in their actual place of employment. The other nice component for this is that there's some job security for the resident, but it's also a bonus for us because the resident is guaranteed 3 years of employment with the school district following that year of co-teaching and residency. Let's see if we can get this to go here. Might need to ask somebody to do the. Okay, great. Yep. So I will never do the program justice. So we have a storytelling video here.
I just knew that teaching was something that I was born for.
It's a common thought in a lot of teachers, try to make a change, try to have some impact.
We have a lot of students that cross the border every day to come to school. I know what they've been through. I was raised in Mexico and I was born here in the United States. I decided I want to be a teacher because I want to make an impact in the students.
New Mexico has a high need of teachers. You go any district and they need teachers.
The residency program is probably one of the most important decisions and investments the legislature has made. If we don't have high quality skilled teachers to teach the programs, we're not going to be able to meet student needs. Our schools are only as successful as the quality of our teachers.
If we're looking at teacher candidates to hire, are we going to take a teacher candidate who's only been in the field for a half a semester or someone who has been under the supervision of a lead teacher for an entire school year?
In the traditional student teaching, I've heard from a lot of teachers say, I'm not prepared for this. I never learned how to work with students with special needs. I don't know what I'm doing. Through a teacher in residency program, they're going to have worked with every kind of kid that you're going to find in the classroom because they've had that experience. People that go into education will know what they're getting into and be equipped. Education is taking a hit. If we can use those residency programs to add to our educational family, that's what we want to do.
With the residence program, it's a co-teaching model. It's like having 2 full-time teachers in the room all the time.
When I taught, it was 1 semester. We started in August, and by September, my mentor teacher was out of the building. I was by myself for 2 months.
This program gives you more of an opportunity than a single semester worth of student teaching could. You get to see the classroom from beginning to end, and you see how the kids shaped throughout the year.
What the residency does is take a class of 30 students and you're changing the teacher to student ratio from 1 to 30 to 1 to 15. The impact on those individual students' learning is magnified.
We are data driven in a lot of ways. So when you look at the scores, the kids are off the charts. Some of them came in barely knowing how to write their name. The whole classroom, they're all reading now. They're all reading, they're all writing sentences. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
We need that in New Mexico. Our kids need that.
Coming out of COVID, we have a lot of students that are behind. Socially, emotionally, they just have lost time. But having 2 teachers in a classroom to be able to focus in on what those students' needs are has been a huge benefit for the students of New Mexico. This is a stepping stone for years down the road, and I think you're going to see the ripple effects for a long time. We want every pre-service teacher to spend a full year from the day kids come to school to the day kids leave with an experienced mentor so that they know exactly what's involved in teaching an entire year. The only way that can happen is if we pay them to do that.
Probably 90% of our teachers that have gone through a residency program wouldn't have done it if they weren't able to get paid. The resources, the support that we get, they vested so much into us that we know we're important. We make a difference.
The funding from this program has been super important. I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. I didn't have any idea that I did want to continue my education. This was not something that I had thought about until this program came to light. It allowed me to continue my education. I didn't have to go into debt for it. It allowed me to focus solely on being in the classroom.
The most foundational and important part of our residency program is it gives respect to the profession.
This level of funding has allowed us to diversify our teaching workforce. As part of the residency, students are offered a job at the end. And so they have guaranteed employment for the next 3 years. It's a higher quality of training. And so we see higher quality graduates and higher quality teachers entering our schools.
They don't have to make that financial choice. Do I take care of my family or do I serve my community?
The teacher residency initiative is really important for smaller districts because we struggle finding teachers in general. That person becomes a part of your school family. When they become a part of your school family, they're vested in the community, they're vested in the students.
Now being in the schools, I see the need for the students. They need that mentor in their lives. The residency helps to serve students with underserved backgrounds. Just talking to kids can be difficult. Having a resident at our school, we're able to help students talk about things like social emotional learning. We're able to approach all kinds of things that we wouldn't because you have a smaller teacher to student ratio. Helping them learn how to talk to all different kinds of populations is critical.
I have grown incredibly. The time spent in the classroom is something that you can't duplicate anywhere. I'm going to be a better educator. I know I'm going to be because I'm prepared. It's allowed me to be confident enough to say, I'm ready.
It's a game changer. It is an absolute game changer. I could not think of a better way for the state to spend their money. The quality that is going out into our state for our New Mexico children is better than I've seen it in the 20 plus years I've been in education. Our graduates this coming May are ready. They're ready to take on the children that New Mexico has in a way that we haven't seen ever since I've been in education.
So I think it's really important for us just to think about where we see those teachers in their third year. So we have 93% of them who are staying in the profession with the residency. And this I think is so important. If you have that really strong foundation, and I chuckle every time I see it, that it's true. You know, our student teaching experience was many of us got thrown into a classroom and your supporting teacher was doing who knows what, right? And where we don't know. So this really makes a difference, and it's making a difference for students as well, because then they have two teachers in the classroom with them. So about 90% of them are staying in the same class, in the same school rather. 80% of those folks are in the same district. And what we have found so far is that our teacher residents are 2 times more likely to come from diverse backgrounds. So I think this is kind of where our rubber hits road, that 66% of our teacher residents are people of color. I know that New Mexico is at an advantage of this because we are a minority majority state. And so it is a little bit easier for us to hit this number, but it is still really impressive because we don't always match. The faces do not always match the students in our classrooms, and we are working towards that as well. We're working with 8 of our higher education institutions right now who are producing 75% of our teaching cadre and half of our school districts across the state. We are small. We have 147 districts and 100 charter schools that are working with us. So we are working with half of them too. Just thinking about how the racial identity, and I know that this is pretty small, but we are working very tirelessly with many different organizations as well as our tribal partners to increase the number of students who are American Indian and Native American. And so this is just sort of the breakdown of those 66%. We know all of the obstacles that we have in front of us, and we also know that we still have a lot of work to do, but we have been able to demonstrate through the work and through partnership with our legislature and our governor right now that this is actually funding that will stay in place as long as we need it and as long as the universities are willing to support the work, which I don't see why that would go away. We actually then have, because of our work, we're able to qualify for the EIR grant that we got last year. And we were just awarded a couple of months ago in partnership with our Department of Workforce Solutions, the apprenticeships, Building America 2. I think we've heard a little bit about that today. And so this will also support the work as we move forward. Another great program that I can highlight just for a moment as I wrap up here is our Educator Fellows Program. This is our EA or paraprofessional into the workforce program that allows folks to get into the classroom with a residency and coming from the educational pipeline. I would just like to highlight for you, and we brought several of these for you to use or to grab, or you can scan it here. But with Prepared to Teach, New Mexico has collaborated in producing this report or a case study, just highlighting the work that has been done and the work that we still have to do and that we're looking forward to. So looking forward to any questions after this, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing some exemplars from New Mexico. It is now my honor to introduce Secretary Miguel Cardona, who is here to talk to us about educator preparation.
How is everyone? Good, good. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Literally just drove in from the airport. Just landed a few minutes ago. So thank you for spending time with us here today. Thank you, Glenna, for the introduction, and thank you for the incredible work and partnership leading our special education rehabilitative services work at the Department of Education. Thank you, Glenna. And I also want to say thank you to Roberto Rodriguez and the whole OPEPD team at the Department of Education, who really took this and ran with it. We know at the Department of Education that there are great examples out there, and it was our job to make sure that we brought some. I tried to watch a little bit of the New Mexico when the door opened. I was paying attention. Look, man, I miss being out there. I miss seeing the great work that's happening out there. I love getting out to the States and listening to all of you. So thank you for all your work. But thank you, Roberto. Where are you, Roberto? Right over here. Roberto and team. OPEPD crew, where are you? Stand up. If you're from the OPEPD crew, at the Department of Education, we're down with OPEPD for sure. Look, I'm in awe of the leaders in the room today. We're honored to be in the presence of, I think she might have been recognized, our this year's National Teacher of the Year, Missy Testerman. Missy, good to see you. Thank you for representing the best profession that there is, the way you do so with your heart. And I know Rebecca was here. Rebecca Peterson was here a little while ago. So it was always good to welcome back our folks who are really just shining a light on how great this profession is. Last time I saw Missy, it was pretty cool. We were just hanging out in the East Room at the White House. The first ever teacher state dinner. We were just hanging out, and you may know state dinners are reserved for like heads of state, right? I went to one before. It was the leader of France was there, and Japan had a state dinner, and Dr. Biden said, you know what, we're gonna have one for teachers, and it was amazing. I don't know if any of you in the room were there. I know you were there, and it's something that was special for you, for those who were in it, but also for our country to say we need to put some respect on the profession, and we're going to do it at the White House. So shout out to you and all your colleagues in the profession. We got a lot of folks here, a lot of heavy hitters here. I was looking at the list. I know some friends from the Hunt Institute are here. Where's Hunt? Where are you? Over there. All right. Teach.org is in the house. Where are you? All right. Teach.org. Thank you. And I know there's so many others that if I continued, my time will run out and they'll pull me out of here. So I'm just going to say thank you for being here. Look, if it does take a village, you all are the village elders. So thank you for what you do. You're here because your leadership has made an impact in advancing the teaching profession, not just in education, but for the entire country. As a lifelong educator, I've always believed teaching is the best profession. It's a profession that makes all other professions possible. So you can imagine how moved I was when my daughter, Celine, she's a freshman in college, she told me that she plans to become a special education teacher. She was thinking about studying something else, and then, over the last 2 summers, she had an opportunity to volunteer first and then work as a music teacher at a camp for students and adults with special disabilities, with disabilities, exceptionalities, gifts. She participated in the program, and she came up and she goes, Papi, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. And just imagine the joy that I felt, that filled my heart when she told me that she wants to do that, because I know, like you in the room know, that teaching is an extension of your life's purpose. And I was so thrilled that Celine found what God's plan was for her, to be frank. And then in true teenager form, she looked at me and she goes, Papi, you got to do something about the salary. I'm like, damn, Celine, I'm working on it. I did promise her that I was working on it. But can we blame her for bringing it up? Can we? And I joke and we joke, But our culture loves to play lip service to teachers. We love to talk about how educators make a difference, how they change lives, how they save lives. Let's be real, though. Platitudes are no replacement for better paychecks. Niceties are no substitute for student loan forgiveness. Donuts are delicious. I love donuts. I love coffee in the staff lounge. But that's no match for sustainable workloads and agency in the classroom. For years, the teaching profession has suffered from a lack of real respect. I always say we need the ABCs of teaching because we don't have enough acronyms in education. We need another one. Agency, better working conditions, and competitive salary. The more I travel the country, the more I realize that we have to make it ABCDs and add the word diversity to it as well. Teacher salary is still 26% less than other professions with similar degrees. We've normalized teachers driving Uber or bartending on the weekends because they need that to make ends meet. In many states, teachers qualify for some state assistance. And then when it comes to professional growth, which is part of better working conditions, we've normalized drive-by professional development. You know what I'm talking about? You know those. It's like you sit in a PD for 30 minutes in the afternoon, and now you're expected to be an expert in trauma-informed care, right? This is why we're focused on fixing the barriers into the profession. Name another profession where you have to work for free for 4 months before you start getting paid. Yet, it's what we do as teachers. Then we wonder why we don't have diversity in the profession. We're doing it to ourselves. the ABCDs of teaching. It's about respect. We in this room understand what respect means. It means investing in our schools, in our teachers, and in our students. 4 years ago, our public schools were in crisis. When the pandemic struck, the field shed 9% of its workforce within months. President Biden and Vice President Harris knew from day one that rebuilding the profession was critical, not only for academic recovery, but for our country's recovery. And thanks to your leadership and your collaboration, an estimated $30 billion of the $130 billion invested by the American Rescue Plan has gone into recruiting, preparing, and hiring new teachers. Today, we have more people working in public education now than before the pandemic. In order to address the shortage, we worked hard to help student teachers earn while they learn. When we started together less than 4 years ago, 0 states offered paid teacher apprenticeships. Today, registered apprenticeship programs are approved in 45 states plus DC and Puerto Rico, allowing our future teachers to earn while they learn. That deserves a round of applause. I bother my staff. I love me some line graphs. Oh man, I love line graphs. So you go from 0 to 45. That's impressive. 3.5 years. That's why when I say, shout out to Roberto and shout out to the folks at the Ed Department, not because they did the work, but because they lifted up the models. We provided funding where it was needed. We really pushed, we advocated with governors, with state legislative leaders, with universities, with superintendents, with boards of education. If we do what we've done, we're going to get what we've gotten. We have to change the game. 0 to 45. And we're not done. Who are those 5, Roberto? No, we're not going to call them out. We're not going to call them out. But they're on notice. Where's the camera? You're on notice. Today, HBCUs and other minority-serving institutions are getting more federal funding to prepare more teachers of color and bilingual educators. I recently went to Bowie State University, an amazing HBCU in Maryland, and using some of our Hawkins grant dollars, which is the first time anyone's put money into it, President Biden put money into it, to create pipelines for diversity. I met a program that had 50 young Black males that are going into the teaching profession in that community. And they were being mentored by former superintendents and former principals. And I said, if we could do this here, we could do this anywhere in the country. It's exciting to see those dollars translate into opportunities. We prioritized educator diversity across 23 grant programs, and we've awarded nearly 600 grants advancing educator diversity in 47 states, DC, and Puerto Rico, and Guam. Today, more than 1 million public servants, including thousands of teachers and school employees, are getting debt relief because we fixed the public service loan forgiveness program. Look, and we throw out these big numbers every once in a while. We hit the 1 million mark, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I was in Atlanta. The program started in 2007, bipartisan vote, to increase the number of public servants. 2007 to 2017, a 10-year period where if you work in the public sector, you pay your public your loans, your student loans, they're going to be forgiven. So 2017, the magic year, right? A lot of loans are going to be forgiven. Only 7,000 were forgiven in 4 years. It was broken. So one of the things right away, President Biden, Vice President Harris said, fix this. And when they say something, you do it. 1 million in 3.5 years compared to 7,000. Any math people here? Oh, good. What's the percentage increase then? Because I got the answer. No, I don't have the answer here, but it's thousands of percentage increase from 7,000 to 1 million public servants. And 1 million, that's a big number. There are 1 million stories of lives that are changed. Generational impact. I met a teacher from New York who told me that because of her public service loan forgiveness, after 20 years of teaching, she can finally buy her first home. Is that too much to ask? God's honest truth. I met another teacher who told me, this teacher, he had an apartment. He said, now I can upgrade my apartment so my son doesn't have to sleep in the walk-in closet. Unbelievable. 20 years in public service, paying loans. Is that too much to ask? When I talk about respect, you know, I said 26% less than other professions with similar degrees. Now, that's not something that over here we could do, but we can fix public service loan forgiveness, and we can defend it despite the challenges that we get. So we're proud of that. And I want to tell you right now, there are millions of public servants right now that probably don't even know they're eligible for it. So let's all continue to do our work, making sure that they have access to it. And finally, today, 30 states, DC and Puerto Rico have taken action to better compensate teachers. Average teacher salaries are up 9.5% since 2021. Leaders from many of these states are here today. Red states and blue states, purple states, all working to raise the bar for teacher compensation, retention, and preparation. We see Maryland and Nevada taking dramatic action to increase teacher pay. We see Michigan investing hundreds of millions in high quality and affordable educator preparation through Grow Your Own and teacher apprenticeship programs. We see Illinois raising the bar with efforts to prepare more teachers of color. And that's not even scratching the surface of what folks in this room have achieved from Massachusetts to Colorado, from Tennessee to New Mexico and beyond. You're all proof of what's possible when we reject complacency and we raise the bar together. You know, I always say people want Finland results, but they're not willing to put into Finland investments. You in this room are an example of what's possible in this country when we match both leadership, innovation, and braided funding to lift up what works in this profession. But as long as the educators are out there who feel unsupported, underpaid, and underappreciated, we have to raise the bar even higher, and unapologetically too. As long as we hear hesitation from young people about entering the profession, we've got work to do. As long as our educator workforce does not reflect the beautiful diversity and lived experience of our students, we've got work to do. Imagine what a country with a well-respected education profession looks like. Imagine a world where well-compensated and well-supported teachers are valued as high as other professions. Imagine a world in which more promising, talented young people who could become bankers, they could become lawyers or doctors, physicians, were excited to be teachers instead. What if teaching became a competitive profession with competitive pay? Look, if we're not cheerleading for it, who's gonna? If we're not cheerleading for this profession, who will? No country grows if their education system's not strong. And I've been a teacher, I've been a school principal, I've been a district leader, I've been a state leader. Now I'm secretary, and I can tell you, you invest in the instructional core where teachers, and I say teachers broadly, educators, that means our school counselors, our mental health support, our the people that, the ecosystem of our education system. If you don't invest in that, it doesn't matter. I don't care how great your curriculum is. If you don't invest in the teaching profession, you could talk to me about tutoring all you want. What are we tutoring for? We're creating gaps if we don't have high quality teachers in the classroom. This is an exciting time. It really is an exciting time. We have the potential to really change the game. I love the work that we've done together. I love the work over the last 3.5 years, but to me, that's just planting seeds. That's just planting seeds. I want us to maintain a level of urgency around this, like we did 4 years ago when we wanted to open schools. Remember that urgency? Remember how we came together? Remember how we didn't want to hear about the obstacles? We were walking into this with faith in one another. There were no vaccines then. Testing took like 48 hours. If you're lucky if you got one. But we said, we gotta take care of our babies. Well, what we're doing here is taking care of our babies. Nothing matters more as a father than who's standing with my child, who's there for my child, who's helping them see potential in them that they don't even see. like I was as a second grader when Mr. O'Neill saw something in me that I didn't see. I had only what my public school provided, nothing more. High quality teachers, a profession that was respected. Man, it's on us. We are the frontliners. And if we don't fight unapologetically, if we don't push back against the complacency that can settle in 3 years after a pandemic and now we go back to business as usual, if we're not fighting the fight, who will? I say this to you not only as Secretary of Education, but as a father of someone who wants to get into this profession. I'm excited. We can do this. We can create those conditions where it continues to grow. And in that world, students like my daughter wouldn't have to worry about making ends meet to join the profession that they love. Let's go make that world together. Let's continue to push each other. Let's hold each other accountable. It's tiring work. It's tiring work. We all have our challenges. Mine might be 5 hours in front of a hearing at the Hill. Yours is tough too. It's creating intentional collaboration in places where some people they don't want to play. They don't want to work. It's raising the bar, have higher goals for the profession than what currently exists. It's not accepting the status quo. Let's do that work together. Let's reflect on how far we've come and where we hope to go. Let's keep lifting up our educators across the country. And let's put our heads together. Let's raise the bar even higher for today's educators and for those who are to come. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your time today.
Thank you, Secretary Cardona. Could I please be joined by the members of the last panel? So when we last were together prior to the Secretary joining us, we heard from New Mexico. And next we're going to hear from Tennessee. And so Aaron Crisp, do you want to do it from there or do you want to do it from up here? Great.
Nothing like following Secretary Cardona, right? I mean. Or right before, yes. Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be a part of this event and among such amazing leaders. I've just learned a ton today already. I feel like we could just all go home. You don't want to hear about Tennessee, right? Or do you? Maybe? You do. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm Erin Crisp. I represent the Tennessee Grow Your Own Center. We were formed through a partnership, a wonderful partnership between the Tennessee Department of Education and the University of Tennessee system. Our infrastructure is supported through the University of Tennessee system, but we serve 14 different colleges and universities across the great state of Tennessee with teacher apprenticeship, grow your own programs. We have been doing this work for 2 years now. Thank you very much for the cues in the back. So I am thrilled to share with you today some of our progress and the things that have been happening in Tennessee. Oh, I get to drive. That's right. So our vision in the Tennessee Grow Your Own Center is to make every K-12 learner's experience better by equipping their schools. We see the school district leaders really as our primary customer, so to speak, by equipping their schools with expanded pipelines, not replacing the traditional pipeline, but expanding it. Our EPP partners really need to hear that from us. And we expand that pipeline with candidates who are confident, highly skilled, and committed. And they are confident because they have at least a whole year of mentoring and apprenticeship with a highly skilled educator before we hand them the keys to a classroom. They are highly skilled because they accomplish all of the same competencies as educators in traditional programs with faculty from those colleges and universities. And they are committed because they are from their own communities. They are staff members in those buildings. They are parents in those communities. They are high school students who graduated from those high schools and want to reinvest in their communities. So how do we accomplish this grand vision? What will we see if we are successful? So if we are successful, we will see reduced vacancies. We want to go from about 1,200 persistent vacancies. That means you're starting the school year as a state and you still have about 1,200 openings. We want to reduce that by half. So we have a standing line item in the governor's budget that says that we want 600 teacher apprentices every year through a $5 million allocation in the budget. So that's kind of the impetus for this work. We want to equip school districts for workforce development, support EPPs with the development of programming that matches the needs of those apprentices, and raise awareness for the value of degreed apprenticeships in general. So we can talk more about that as we go through the presentation, but I do think that is also kind of an unanticipated benefit of teacher apprenticeship work. The increased emphasis on the fact that apprenticeship is more than skilled trades. It's things like education and healthcare and advanced manufacturing and lots of other fields as well. So how does all of this work? Just technical elements for a moment. The program design process for teacher apprenticeship in Tennessee really starts with partnership development. And the Grow Your Own Center facilitates that partnership through technical assistance with our EPP partners and our school district partners who fill out an application together. And that application is really a process of defining roles and responsibilities. Our Tennessee Department of Education is serving the role of sponsor. Our LEA school district partners are serving the role of employer. And then our EPP providers are serving the role of related technical instruction provider, RTI in Department of Labor language, not to be confused with response to intervention in Department of Ed language. A little translation work we get to do and Grow Your Own. So that's how those partnerships start. Once the application's filled out, everybody's clear on their roles and responsibilities, we get to move into the actual work of building apprentice programs in each of our school districts. And so I'll talk about this kind of in 3 steps with 3 different stakeholder partners. So this first one is really the EPP partner. The Tennessee Grow Your Own Center, when we were created, one of our big kind of initiatives that was put in front of us was create a sustainable funding model. We are moving away from ESSER and into a state-funded version of this program. Make this sustainable, please. And we said, sure, we would love to do that. And so one of the first things we did was to work with our EPP partners to say, we really need to reduce the cost of this program, the actual cost for you as a college or university to deliver the program. And so we actually have 7 strategies for cost reduction that we have been working on teaching our EPP partners. There's a series of webinars on our website where you can watch and learn about those 7 strategies. But we've been over 2 years teaching them how to reduce the actual cost of their programs, which then translates into reduced costs for those of us who are coming up with funding models to deliver these programs at low or no cost to by apprentices. So we actually cap, we do a scholarshiping of $5,000 per undergraduate learner, $2,500 per post-bac learner per year that the Grow Your Own Center scholarships to candidates in addition to other funding sources, many other state and federal funding sources, including Pell and then a whole suite of Tennessee-based state funding sources that we braid in with that scholarship amount as well to get to a 0 cost for teacher apprentices. Step 2 was to work with our LEA partners. We learned pretty quickly that it was going to be most effective if LEAs, if school districts were equipped to recruit from their own communities. So we, as opposed to doing the recruitment for them, we started with a strategy that kind of said, well, let's do both and see how it works. For us and the resources we had available, the personnel, quite frankly, that we have available in the Grow Your Own Center, it was going to work better for us to really focus on equipping our school districts to do recruiting in a consistent way. So we equip them with things like forms and surveys, very similar to what teach.org does. And we have central data collection points with dashboards that each district can log into to see the specific information for candidates who are filling out their forms, who have an interest in their programs. They can send out links to that forms to the pools of people that they want to make available the teacher apprenticeship opportunity. So many of them will email that out. Based on what candidates fill out in that survey, they will get an automated response email that we have written that says, here's a next step for you to follow. And those are customized based on the fields that people fill out in the form. So we've worked with our LEAs to equip them for that process, and that seems to be working well on the recruitment front. And then as it relates to apprentices, our focus in the Grow Your Own Center is really more on the school districts and the EPP partners. We let them manage the relationships with their individual apprentices. But the pieces that we do try to facilitate for apprentices is to make their program options very transparent. So we have 14 EPP partners. When we first started in this work, we recognized that they each describe their programs of study, but they use the same words differently. So a word like blended, for example, has anybody heard someone describe a college program as we have a blended program? Does that mean the same thing from one institution to the next? No, it does not. It means something very different. And so folks would have assumptions about what blended means, and then they would learn, oh, that means I still have to drive to campus on Tuesday nights for 3 hours. That's just not going to work for me. That's not blended in my mind. So we did some work with our EPP partners to define things in similar ways across the board. Just an example of one of the resources we've created is this sources of funding for teacher apprentices. Funding is probably one of the most complicated aspects of running these programs, and we do a lot of braiding and blending. And as I talk to other state leaders, this is an area where I think we all want to put our heads together to come up with some better ways to get our funds into the hands of people who need them. It would be one thing if we were saying we need more funds, which yes, of course, that's always the case. But even in cases where there are funds available, getting them to the right places in a timely, predictable, sustainable manner is also a challenge that I think is probably low-hanging fruit that we can work to address. So one of the ways that we communicate to our various stakeholder audiences across the state is to say, really our goal here is to create a statewide network of programs and pathways. And to do that, we need to collect consistent data. We take that consistent data, we plot it on a map of Tennessee. And so, for example, I use this with the Board of Trustees at the University of Tennessee system. And I say, as the public land grant university for our state, there are still gaps. There are still counties in this state where no EPP pathway is available because our EPPs are limited in the number of online blended or hybrid seats that they can make available at any given time. So the symbols on this map, I know you can't read them, but if you wanted to go to our website, there is a version of this that you can blow up and see in larger detail. But really what it communicates is the places in our state where you can access a bachelor's pathway, a post-bac pathway, whether you can access that online, or in person. And when we first started this work, there were a lot of gaps on that map. And so we are gradually filling in those gaps with a circle, star, and triangle in every county. That is the goal. This is a tool we most often use with our school district partners. It's our workforce development funnel, and what it represents are on-ramps and off-ramps for workforce development for each school district partner. So what you just saw in the map, that's very quantitative data, number of programs and counties and offerings, pathways in our state. We needed a complementary qualitative data piece, and that's our story of our 4 personas here with Allie, Bart, Dante, and Callie. I knew the 4th one. Allie, Bart, Callie, and Dante, ABCD. So our 4 personas, these learners became really real to us through storytelling, and we use them a lot in our work with school district partners and with college and university partners to talk about these are 4 entry points and program pathways that are needed in every county in our state. So our goal is that every school district leader, when they identify someone who they think would be an amazing educator, no matter what that person needs in terms of an on-ramp, we have something that's already been kind of pre-designed and pre-identified for them. So whether the first rung is high school pathways, so that's your high school pre-apprenticeship, teaching as a profession pathway, whether they're a high school student, whether they need an associate's degree to get started. We leverage our first 2 years of free community college funding for the first 2 years of the bachelor's program, so that's that second rung. Whether they need a bachelor's completion program, and that means awarding more generous transfer credit pathways from our EPP partners. It means providing credit for prior learning for our EPP partners. So maybe that's the rung that someone needs, or whether they need a post-bac licensure only pathway. That's not a full master's degree because that's very expensive and maybe unnecessary, but just a post-bac licensure only 1-year pathway. Does every county in our state have access to those 4 pathways? Definitely not right now, but that is the goal, to make sure that every school district leader knows where they can send a candidate when that candidate comes to them from one of those on-ramps. So we have this matrix that we fill out, and that's our wonderful Associate Director, Kate, there on the right. She's working with some partners, and we work on this matrix one-on-one with folks to identify pathways and partners for each of those 4 personas. So you can see Andy, Bart, Callie, Dante, their names are across the top. Who are your partners that you're working with for each one of those pathways? Do you have a community college identified? Do you have a 4-year college identified? Do you have a community foundation? Do you have an education foundation in your city or county? Who are your partners that you can work with to support each one of those pathways? So of course, like any program, we face some barriers. These are some that we are working to address. Lots of college credits are lost on transfer. That's not just a Tennessee thing, that's a national thing. Too many associates in teaching degree completers were retaking coursework at EPPs, working through that with our college partners. On-the-job learning is not equitably recognized from one program to the next. We know that's an issue. In some places it's being recognized for credit, in other places it's not. Prior learning assessed credit is also inequitable. Some students have access to it. Some students learn about it in the admissions process, some do not. Enrollment processes are not always designed for working learners. They can be pretty laborious sometimes. They're more designed for traditional learners. Things like GPAs and test scores, ACT, SAT, thank you. Those can be barriers as well that we are working with our EPP partners to overcome. Things like learner support in evenings and weekends, access disparities for rural areas. These are all things we're working to overcome. But there's great news. Well, we learned that mentoring really matters a lot, and we have a great mentoring program that we're about to kick off this year. So we've definitely learned about the value of investing in our mentors. But evidence of success, these are some of the impacts our program has had so far. We have had retention rates of 88 to 91%, 88% being for our bachelor's completion, 91 for those post-bacs. They tend to be a little higher. Recruitment efforts have been super fruitful, even with $0 spent on it. So no big marketing campaigns, but just the fact that we're recruiting through those school district leaders, equipping them, and offering a free, no-cost, low-cost pathway to becoming an educator has been really attractive. We have about 3,500 people who've expressed interest. 168 teachers have finished at this point and are out there working in classrooms today. Yay, very excited about that. And from what we hear, they are doing a great job. Their school building leaders are thrilled with their apprentices. 661 apprentices are in some segment of the program right now, community college included, with the EPP pathways. So 661 is everybody who's in any stage of that workforce development funnel. So if you look at our rapids data, for example, it does not match this number, just FYI. 91 of the 145 school districts in Tennessee are currently approved to offer teacher apprenticeship. We're really excited about that. We have 7 high schools who are doing pre-apprenticeship programs. And something that I'm most excited about, because I work with the college partners a lot, 100% of our Tennessee rural communities now have access to a low or no cost post-bac licensure only pathway for special education and math educators. And that is new as of this fall. We have one of our EPP partners who's offering that for $2,500 per candidate for a whole year of post-bac licensure only, which is phenomenal. So way to go, UT Knoxville. I'm going to shout them out because that was a huge amount of effort. So impact on diversity, expanding access into diverse communities. We're cutting the gap in half, I like to say. We're not there yet. We need to keep working on this. But those 3 bars, if it's too hard to see, the light blue is the current workforce, educator workforce. The darker blue is apprentices, and the orange is our student population. So you can see for Black, African American, Hispanic, and other, our apprentices are more diverse than the current workforce, not as diverse as our student population, but almost right in the middle each time. So we're making progress on that front. And then when it comes to age access, so sometimes we hear from our college partners, are we competing with our traditional campus programs? And I like to say, no, we are not. And here's how we know, because only 12%, between 11 and 12%, depending on the semester, 12% of our apprentices are 18 to 24-year-olds. Everybody else falls in one of those other age categories. So we are not competing with your traditional campus students. I do not do this work alone. I have a phenomenal team. I think it matters that all of them have experience as educators. They've all worked in the classroom at some point. They understand the goal and the mission. They're all very passionate about the work that we do. We have a lot of resources on our website. If there's something you're looking for and you can't find it, please just reach out to me or anyone in the Grow Your Own Center. We are thrilled to support this work. We love partnering with folks from other states. We're very open-handed with our resources and our learnings. So please do reach out anytime. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. So we've now heard examples from our states, Michigan, New Mexico, and Tennessee. And so we're going to spend the next few moments listening to remarks wherever you feel comfortable, Missy. From Missy Testerman, the 2024 National Teacher of the Year. Then I'll open it up to questions and we'll wrap up the panel. Thank you.
All right, I also had to play with the mic just to keep with the theme for today. So I would like to thank you for letting me be part of this very important conversation surrounding healthy teacher pipelines. This morning and into this afternoon, as I've sat and listened, I've experienced a range of emotions. Number one, I'm very heartened by all of the efforts that I've seen going on in various states across this country to make sure that America's students continue to have a qualified, capable, prepared teacher in front of them. Like has been referenced multiple times today, any research ever done on the matter has shown that the most important factor on student development is not a program, it's not technology, it's not AI, it is the quality of the educator in the front of the classroom. And we know that and we have to act on it. But I'll be completely honest, as I sat here this morning as someone who has spent 33 years in public education, part of me deep down was saying, if we had invested all of these funds, all of this time, all of these energies into making sure that teachers were compensated well, felt respected, and had a bearable workload, we wouldn't be having to sit here today at this capstone event trying to figure out a solution for a problem that did not come up overnight. I'm heartened, however, that it is getting the attention that it deserves and that we are making inroads toward doing things to create a solution for it. So a little bit about my background. I spent 30 years teaching first and second grades and absolutely loved my job. And my school's English as a second language teacher, which is the terminology that Tennessee uses, came to me at the beginning of the school year and said that she would be moving to another part of the state at the end of the year. That's a hard to fill endorsement in the rural part of Tennessee where I live. So instantly I was very, very concerned about who would advocate for those students, who would be the family resource for them. Through Tennessee's Grow Your Own program, they actually offered at that time, this is in 2021, a pathway for me to enroll in coursework, take 4 courses, 12 credit hours, and to add an ESL endorsement to my license. So I secretly did so throughout the course of that year. Now keep in mind, I am a little older than your typical college enrollee. I am also a digital immigrant and not a digital native. I had never dealt with Blackboard, Canvas, or any of those portals straight out of Satan's den that they use now. So the first night that I had an assignment due, my daughter was actually a junior at the University of Tennessee, and she called me frequently. I mean, any life small problem, you know, someone get your parking space, Chick-fil-A did not put the right sauce in the bag. I heard about it. But at 11:40 at night, before it's due at midnight, I cannot get the assignment to pick up and load. So I call her in a panic and I say, Caroline, you've got to help me. I'm on Blackboard. And so her response was not, thank you for giving me this privileged life. I'd be glad to help you, was what are you doing on Blackboard? But she helped me work through it, and I was able to complete the coursework, take my very first ever praxis exam at age 52. and then become my school's English as a second language specialist, and also the Title III program director. So I feel like I come at this from lots of different angles. I also have served with 27 student teachers throughout my career. So I've had one most semesters. There were a couple of semesters where I had one from one university and another from another university. And what I've found through the years working with these student teachers is that they're excited, they're wonderful, but how we support them moving forth will determine if they stay in this career or not. When they leave and they go to another system and I run into them, I hear one of two things. I work with so-and-so and this person is great and I get lots of help, or I don't have anyone, it's just me. We don't have to be mathematical geniuses like Rebecca assured us that we all are this morning to figure out that the percentage of the ones who do not stay in education are those who do not feel supported. But I am very heartened to hear of all of the things, the great things going on in Michigan and Tennessee, New Mexico to eliminate these barriers. I have made like 6 pages of notes today. I will not read those to you because we would be here the entire time. I'm trying to hit over the highlights of things. I feel like that anything that we can do to keep this pathway open is positively going to benefit our students, but we have to ensure that those teachers who are coming in through alternative ways, all of these innovative, brilliant ideas that we've heard, we have to assure that we continue to fight to raise compensation to keep them in the field. Otherwise, it's going to be the leaky bucket over and over and over. It has to be where we start with this. It has to be a living wage. Earning a living wage automatically enables you to feel a sense of respect about yourself as you take care of your family. But I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be here. I want to thank you to all of those of you who are embroiled in the work to make sure that we do have more and more teachers who are qualified, capable, and ready to hit the ground running to serve our students. There will always be joy in education. I would not have stayed 33 years in public education if the joy that I felt had ever been outweighed by the burdens. I've been very fortunate. For me, it never did. I always found joy. That wasn't because I was remarkable. It was because I had a really strong mentor who I was able to work with for 15 years. I also had very, very strong leadership through my school's principal, who created this wonderful learning environment, not just for our students, but also for the teachers who work there. So investing in leadership beyond the teacher level is also very, very important. But I thank you for all of your efforts to make this possible.
Thank you, Ms. C. All right, we're going to open it up for questions of the panel. And again, we have microphones out, so just raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you. We have one up front. Okay, do you want to do Mecca and then we'll come up front?
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Tennessee. Beyond working directly with school districts, how are you working with any non-traditional sectors or avenues to bring non-traditional educators into the field or to share information about the opportunity?
Yes, so we do rely primarily on our school district partners to do those kinds of recruitment efforts. I would say they have definitely identified people within their communities who are coming to us as second career individuals from other fields. I don't know how they are identifying those folks, what kinds of community partnerships or organizations they might be engaging with. But, you know, for example, folks who have like a bachelor's degree in biology and now want to be a high school science teacher, coming in through those kinds of pathways. I'm not sure that I've heard of organizations that those districts are partnering with, but we definitely have folks who are career changers and looking for that pathway into the profession that will prepare them adequately. I will just add on too that sometimes in the past, school districts have had to, their primary mechanism of getting those folks into a classroom is through an alternative certification route, which in Tennessee we call job embedded. It's a job embedded pathway, meaning you're the teacher of record while you're learning to become a teacher, which is, I'm sure all of you have those types of pathways in your state. It's incredibly burdensome. Some folks are totally fine with it based on, you know, prior experiences they may have had. Other folks find it completely overwhelming and they end up leaving the profession pretty quickly thereafter. And the data bear that out. That's not just anecdotal, like there's actual data around that. And so we have talked to many of our school building leaders about this choice that they have to make between waiting for a year to put that person in a classroom as a teacher of record and giving them a really high quality apprenticeship experience, which is going to lead to licensure and hopefully a long-term educator, or getting them into a teacher of record role right away because I have this really urgent vacancy, knowing that chances are good, 50% chance that they're not going to get licensed by the end of their 3-year temporary permit, and you're going to be in the same situation less than 3 years later where you're filling that same vacancy again. Those are difficult choices for our school building leaders to make, but giving them the option of apprenticeship that is very accessible and affordable is giving them a way to have a long-term solution as opposed to, you know, just kind of this short term, we need to keep backfilling.
Thank you. I heard you both talk about the fact that mentorships matter. My question is, are you putting forth finances to support those mentors who are working with the teachers, and what are your structures for recruitment for good mentors?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. Mentorship is a part of the New Mexico work. So part of the appropriation that we got was the $35,000 for the student teacher. Then there is a coordinator at each of the ed prep programs that is funded. And then there is mentorship funding, which is $5,000 for the teacher of teacher mentor. And then there is a stipend for principals as well, who also agree to host one of our teacher residents in their school. So we are trying to take care of that because we know that it can be extra. And I think we've all pretty well established that many times in the world of education, you are added to without the understanding that you're being compensated for something.
So when we started the program, you know, we were building the plane while we were flying it. So we created a mentor toolkit that we made available to all of our LEAs and EPPs, which gave them some kind of best practices around getting up and going with your mentoring and your teacher apprenticeship program. We learned that there's lots of diversity happening right now across our various programs and school districts around the extent to which mentors are actually being prepared. So that's an area where we're investing additional time, effort, and funds in the upcoming 2 years. So we have a 2-year planned project to do something that's much more hands-on with our mentor training and development that comes from the center so that it's consistent across mentor training. That is the place where we are using our Department of Labor Workforce Development local workforce board funds, for the most part, are going from the local workforce boards to the school districts to pay those stipends for mentors. That's where that funding is coming from most of the time.
Hi there, I'm Manuel Contreras with the Senate Health Committee. A question for New Mexico. I'm curious, do you have a rough sense of what percentage of new teachers that are starting in the classroom participated in your residency? And then I think a broader question about how does sort of having the residency and the money in the state educational agency transform sort of your relationship with school districts, with teacher prep programs, with professional development?
That one, I'm gonna phone a friend. Yeah, I know she knows the percentage right offhand of the number of our candidates that are in residencies.
The dream for the number, not just for us. So thank you for the shout outs to Prepare to Teach, but I got to shout out New Mexico because they are so amazing to work with because they listen to everyone and choose to move towards what's right, which of course we all can do. So thanks to New Mexico, but it is 1/3 of the new folks are coming through teacher residencies. And while California, as Ryan said earlier, has invested over $600 million, I think you guys are at like 10% there, right? So proportionally, the investment per capita is just huge in New Mexico. And the vision is for 100%. It'll never be 100% because suddenly you have, a new population that comes in and speaks another language, and you need somebody that you don't even have a certification area for, or the first day of school, you lose somebody for some reason and you need somebody immediately. So it won't ever be 100%, but that is what the systemic vision is for all of those various pathways that the Deputy Secretary spoke about, that those pathways would all culminate in a paid residency.
Yeah, and if I could just address your second question, I think it's really important because I think over the last couple of years, the relationship with our educator prep programs has become so much stronger because there is this willingness to partner with them, to sort of co-create, build, be alongside of. And so then as we kind of went back to them with some other asks, it has actually made the relationship much more much more of a partnership, which we want it to be as we are navigating, new and maybe uncharted waters when it comes to literacy. Or now we have principal residencies. We are paying for 26 of our principals to go through a pilot project this year too. And so there's just a much greater willingness for them to support our new ideas.
Hi, I'm Matt. I work at Teach for America, Matt Walker. Hello. Thank you all for the presentations, and not just this panel, but everything I've heard today is tremendously exciting, and I'm really grateful to learn a lot about all of this today. My question centers on student outcomes, and I think it's more maybe for you, Erin, simply because there's a larger program and maybe you have a broader sense of impact. And I just would, it's an open question. What have you learned about student outcomes relative to this new program and the new pathways that you've implemented?
K-12 student outcomes. Yeah. So we do one thing, we have ways of measuring that. So that's good. Whether or not the preparation pathway matters when it comes to the achievement of our K-12 students. That's already a part of what we do in Tennessee. The Tennessee Value Added Student Assessment System pays attention to the value add that the teacher has in the classroom for a student's achievement. So that will be something we'll continue to track over time. Very, very new, right? It's most of our candidates, apprentice candidates, first year in the classroom this year. There were about 20, I think, who matriculated last year into being educators. So after we have about 3 years of data, we'll have a way to report on that, and hopefully, but everything anecdotally so far points in the right direction, points in a very positive direction.
Hi, thank you for this presentation. I'm Jim Meadows with the Washington Education Association. We're the NE affiliate and also an apprenticeship provider in Washington State, 10 days old now. And so my question is for Erin. Which of the 7 strategies for reducing apprenticeship costs are the highest leverage early on in the work as an apprenticeship?
Yeah, the highest leverage early on, I would say credit for experiential learning. So most colleges and universities have a method on the books of offering experiential learning credit, but it's often not utilized. It's not being leveraged in ways that are consistent, certainly not as a part programmatically, something that's advertised to students. So if you can work with your college leaders to leverage experiential learning credit or all of their clinical experience requirement, all those student teaching credit hours, that's 15 credit hours that could be offered at a fee, an assessed learning fee, for example, of like $50 per credit hour, as opposed to the normal credit hour rate, you immediately reduce the cost of your program by thousands of dollars just by that one kind of adjustment in the program. So that's pretty easy. All the way down the continuum to competency-based education, which is a focus area for us, really creating some great competency-based curriculum that can be used to assess students in really robust, valid, reliable ways, so that we can offer credit for competencies.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists for spending time with us, and thank you to the audience. We are now going to take a break that is going to be 10 minutes long. So you're going to return at 3:03 p.m. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being so flexible.
I lost my pen somewhere.
that. So